I'm Sebastian St. James. You could be breaking the law right now and not even know about it.
Woo!
Do this with shares in Australia and the coppers will throw you in the back of the divvy van. Yeah, what were you doing with your shares on the night of the 26th at 3 a.m? In Australia, there is a rule about shares that you need to know, and ignorance of the law is no excuse. The Australian Taxation Office, ATO, is warning taxpayers to not engage in asset wash sales to artificially increase their losses and reduce gains or expected gains. Wash sales are a form of tax avoidance that the ATO is focused on at this tax time. So, if you're washing your shares right now, then you could be breaking the law. So, what is a wash sale and why is it illegal? And I did not know that my shares were actually dirty. I was told that I was getting brand new, clean shares. Oh, I'm disgusted. This is Julia. Julia is about to wash her shares. The question is, why is Julia just dressed in a towel? What? You just don't wear a towel and nothing else when you're doing the washing? Julia owns 100k in Facebook. Well, there's your first problem. On the 1st of July, Julia bought 500k of Unicorn Essence perfumes. Wow, okay, well that is an impressive name right there. From the 2nd of July up to November the 2nd, her stock doubled. And in November 3, she sold Unicorn Essence perfumes for 100k, making a 50k profit and doubling her money. Very impressive, this story. However, Julia also bought 100k of Meta, or Facebook as you may know it, at $220 per share. Meta, however, now is $110 per share. Oh, that's a problem. That's a 50% decline, meaning a paper loss of 50k. So the moral of this story is, buy Unicorn Essence perfumes and not Meta. Well, that could be it, but there's something else. You'll remember that Julia actually has a 50k profit already. Aha! I think I know what's going on. Paper loss, actual profit. So her actual profits so far are 50k from the perfume, but her paper losses, which means she hasn't actually sold and crystallized it, is 50k in Meta. I don't know about you, but I think there could be a spot of tax loss harvesting about to occur. So on June 30, Julia sells 50k of Meta shares for a loss of 50k. And on July 1, so the next financial year, she buys back 50k of Meta. Why are you buying it back? That makes no sense. Because Julia believes ultimately that Mark Zuckerberg's metaverse will make her a fortune. Well, each to their own. And now it is tax time. This is a tax return of Julia. So Unicorn Essence perfumes, 50k profit, which she's declaring. Meta was the 50k loss, so a profit, they cancel out. Yes, I'm noticing 0 in total, therefore $0 in tax that's owed. So far so good, right? The tax system is built on offsetting losses against gains. Whatever is left over is what you're taxed on, right? No, Julia has just broken the law because she's done some share washing. Wash sales typically involve the disposal of assets such as crypto and shares just before the end of the financial year, where after a short period of time, the taxpayer reacquires the same or substantially similar assets. This is a wash sale, and it is done to create a loss to offset against a gain already derived or expected to be derived in certain circumstances in a tax return. Hang on, I buy and sell shares all the time. So you're telling me that if I happen to sell off a share around the end of June and happen to buy another one around the beginning of July, that'll be irons for me? Is that right? A wash sale is different from normal buying and selling of assets because it is undertaken for the artificial purposes of generating a tax benefit for the current financial year. The taxpayer disposes of and reacquires the asset for the deliberate purpose of realizing a capital gains loss and obtaining an unfair tax benefit. Well, that's a bit vague. So you're telling me that I can push my little brother into the mud as long as I normally push him from time to time, and on this occasion he happened to fall into the mud, but I wasn't aware the mud was there and therefore it's okay? Yes, that's basically how it works. With all this confusion about exactly what is normal behaviour and what is specifically a washed sale, Let's have a look at some things to look out for. Firstly, was the sale at the end of one financial year and the buy at the beginning of the next financial year? Did you rebuy the same stock that you sold? That's a really big flag. And kind of crazy talk, really. If you sold off a share, why would you, in 3 days' time, buy it back? That's not normal behaviour, and that's the sort of thing that the ATO is looking for. However, if you're a trader, perhaps you're watching a share as it goes up and crosses an imaginary line. You quickly buy it, and it crosses it again, so you sell it and then buy it again when it goes back. So it is perfectly reasonable that there could be a time when you act like you're washing shares, but in reality, you're not. The next thing to look out for, did you rebuy a similar holding to the one you sold? For example, you sold STW, but you bought IOZ. Well, why would that be a problem? I'm just changing ETFs. This is STW. It is an ASX 200 fund, right? And this is IOZ, which is also an ASX 200 fund. Oh, I see. So I'm selling one AS 200 fund and straight away reacquiring another one. That could look suspicious. Now, just because you've done either of these things does not necessarily mean that you've broken the law. Always remember, God knows what's in your heart. He knows the sin that you are trying to hide. Okay, that seems to be a different video than I expected. Remember, the ATO does not actually know what's in your heart. It also requires that it's a deliberate act for the purpose of actually minimizing the tax. So your purpose, what was in your heart, does technically matter. However, if you actually take the steps of a wash sale, but you weren't expecting to do it, don't expect the ATO not to notice, and don't expect the ATO not to demand that you justify your actions. But how's the ATO even going to know? The ATO's sophisticated data analytics can identify wash sales through access to data from the share registries and crypto asset exchanges. When the ATO identifies this behaviour, the capital loss is rejected, resulting in an even bigger loss to the taxpayer. The ATO has their little tendrils into absolutely everything, and that is why when you create a bank account or when you start up with a share account, they ask you for your tax file number. Now, mind you, it's not actually required. You don't have to give it to them, but if you don't, there'll be all sorts of repercussions like withholding tax. You give them that number, and then, of course, they pass everything on to the ATO, and that's where the tendrilization starts. The question is selling 100 shares of ABC on the 30th of June and then rebuying them on the 1st of July a crime? This is Jake. Jake normally trades crypto but decided to give shares a go. On the 30th of June, Jake made a 40k loss on ABC. He sold 100 shares of DEF, making also a 40k loss. That was a very bad day for you, Jake. And on July the 1st, the next financial year, he bought 100 shares of DEF. So he bought it back again. I see. Is Jake in trouble? Well, based on the sort of things I've just described to you, it's kind of sounding like a wash sale. However, it isn't. And this is the reason why. When Jake sold his shares, the second lot of shares, he did in fact make a loss. But the only other thing he had going on that year is another loss. So it's the balancing between a profit and the loss that actually makes it a wash sale. If you have 2 losses, even though you've rebought back the shares in one of them, technically that is not a wash sale and therefore you don't breach this law. To be a wash sale, sell an asset near the end of the financial year, buy back the same asset or a similar one near the start of the next financial year. However, you need to offset that loss against a gain in order for the wash to be an issue. This is David. David earns 10k from a casual job, right? He sold 100 shares of ABC, realising a profit of 8k, or good for you. However, he pays no tax because he's below the tax-free threshold. So 10k from his casual job plus 8k from capital gains equals 18,000, which is below the tax-free threshold. And then he bought 100 shares of ABC at the start of the next financial year. Why do you people keep buying back the same shares that you're selling? I will never know. But the question is David in trouble? The answer is no, because although he did flip his shares, so it sounds like a wash sale, at the end of the day he made a profit on that sale, and that you're allowed to do. The problem only comes when you sell your shares, when you flip them, and you've made a loss with the purpose of then offsetting against some other capital gains, but if the sale itself makes a profit, then you're in the clear on this law. Did you know that America is about to crash? So should you pull your money out of America and bring it back to nice, safe Australia, click here to find out.